Welcome back to the Survival Circle. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about planning. Now, as President Eisenhower stated, plans are worthless, but planning is essential. And how can that be? Well, it's because plans cannot accommodate every potential outcome. And Murphy's Law pretty much tells us that any situation that we've planned for and we've got all our resources in place to combat will not be the situation we encounter. So the benefit of planning is to actively engage your mind in the process of thinking various situations through and then understanding the needs of those situations and coming up with the resources that will meet the broadest array of the potential situations. Now let me take a moment to clarify just a bit. The purpose of this video is not to make you a project manager. It's to introduce you to an organizational structure that you can then use to personalize to your own needs so you can save time and money and energy and get as prepared as possible. And it really isn't as boring as it may seem at first. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is the benefits of planning. Now, unlike what most people think, the purpose of a plan is not so much to come up with a step-by-step process to follow. That's more of a project schedule, and we're not going to get into all the little subtleties involved in a project schedule. For our purpose, we are just going to use a plan to be the facilitator for our preparations. So essentially, planning focuses your attention. It allows you to gather up all the information that you need in order to make appropriate decisions. Now, equally important, and maybe even more important, is that planning allows you to discard information or potential situations that are just not feasible. This saves a lot of time and energy and resources so that you can concentrate on what is essential. Now, if I live on a high plateau in Arizona, the likelihood of being impacted by a flood is virtually zero. So I'll concentrate more on water gathering, as drought is a high potential, and less on things like primitive raft building skills or something like that. One of the first things that you'll do in this process of planning is to identify the resources and the potential uses of those resources. This helps you to potentially uncover resources that are multifunctional or even resources that you didn't know you had. For instance, when looking around your house for items that can be used as fire-making tinder, you obviously don't want to create sawdust from an antique bed frame, though that sawdust would be good tinder. However, you might find that the lint, your dryer filter, the lint from your dryer filter, there you go, is great for tinder. And it might be a source that you didn't even know you had. So when you start planning, you begin to see your resources in a new light. Now, it might sound silly, but at this stage, we're actually planning to plan. And what that means is that before we can actually start planning, we have to know what our end goal is. So at this point, you may not know. Even if you've been a prepper for years, you may not really know what success looks like in your preparations. For instance, have you ever started a project only to have it abandoned because it didn't really apply? What about those of you who thought that you would be able to get by with a case of MREs, 5,000 rounds of ammunition, and a pup tent? Well, looking back, does that look realistic? Now, I'd guess that the reason that didn't work out is because not enough forethought went into your initial plan. Sure, those things might be able to be incorporated into current plans, but you could have spent time and money you already put into your preps differently if you'd just taken a few moments to think it through. So that's what we're doing in this video, is we're planning to plan. So this method that I'm presenting here is very brief and a very simplified method of evaluating risks. However, it's a great way to begin organizing your thoughts. Think of a situation that may cause you to take some major action outside of your normal daily living routine. On the chart on the screen here, that's the situation. Now next, think of how much that situation would disrupt your life on a scale of 1 to 10. And this is the impact. Take a few moments to rank how likely that is to happen, again, on a scale of 1 to 10, and that's your likelihood. Now you multiply your impact score by your likelihood, and you get your risk score. It's really easy, and you'll see why you want to do that. Now please note, on the website that goes along with this, I said to rank the impact and likelihood on a scale of 0 to 10. Now, of course, if either of those scores are 0, then the risk score will be 0. So you can just skip past anything that is a 0 impact or a 0 likelihood, because these aren't the things we're going to worry about planning for. On the website, it's more directed to a brainstorming group, where you throw in everything down, and then if something rates as a 0, you don't worry about it. This is focused more towards the individual or individual families. So it's 1 to 10, and everything should be something that is actually likely to be planned for. Okay, now just to answer some critics out there, yes, there's going to be things that we don't plan for. There are things called ELEs, or elimination level events, if I have that right. And that's like a 10-mile wide asteroid impacting the planet, or our sun going supernova. No amount of practical level planning or preparation for an event like that will make a difference. So we're excluding those from this process as well. There's no reason to prep for it. You can't do anything really to save yourself. I'm also not going to dwell on that in my daily life, so out the windows those goes. Now, here on this screen, we have an example of a house fire. Now, this is definitely something that will change your normal activities. Depending on the level of the fire, it could be really minor, maybe just a little bit of smoke damage in one room, or it could be incredibly disruptive if the house can no longer be occupied. So it can really range from 1 to 10 in impact. So we'll put it at a 5 for our purposes, just for illustration. Now, if you keep your house in pretty good condition, and your neighbors keep their houses in pretty good condition, then that helps. But let's say there's been a drought in the area, because there has been a drought in our area, and there's been wildfires, because there has been a wildfire in our area, or even in surrounding counties. The likelihood on the scale is probably still less than average, but it's higher than we'd like it to be. So we'll put it as a 3. Yes, the ratings are subjective. It's incredibly likely you'll go through your whole life without a major house fire. But we're trying to look out for ourselves and take some personal responsibility and gain some peace of mind. So a house fire is definitely worth doing something about. Okay, so now you multiply everything out, and you see where we are. On this screen, we've added a little bit longer list. It's just to illustrate the point of developing your risk score. Now, this also shows that the impacts and the likelihoods can be all over the board. Note that most people will have very similar impact scores with various events, but the likelihood scores will likely fluctuate drastically depending on your circumstances. Now, say, for instance, just to illustrate the point, if both of us were hit by a car, we're probably both going to experience an impact of around a 7. However, if I live in the backcountry road in Amish country, and I'm probably looking at about a 1 likelihood. If you live in a city just a couple of blocks off the freeway, then you're probably looking at a 3 likelihood. So they're going to develop, the likelihoods are going to be different depending on your circumstance. There are instances where impacts might also be different, though. Say you lived in a city and you own several rental properties, and some of those properties were vacant most months or some months, then my impact of a 5 on a house fire may only be a 2 for you, because you have somewhere to move immediately and I don't. So that's how things can be different for different people. What we really have to do is get down to the nitty-gritty, and we need to establish your threshold for risk. Now, make no mistake, despite what people have told you, you can plan for everything. You can prepare for everything. You cannot do it efficiently. You cannot do it effectively. And you cannot do it on a budget. Any budget. Even as large as our country is, as willing as our government is to spend more than it takes in, the country still has to let some things slide. Realistically speaking, you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to have to let some things slide. Now, being efficient is doing the right thing. Being effective is doing the thing right. When you combine the two, you save time, you save money, you save energy. You reduce your frustration, you get to your goal as smoothly as possible, but you'll still have decisions to make along the way of what you're going to let slide. So we'll take a look at our list and establish our risk threshold, or your risk tolerance. Now, do you want to try to take care of everything on the list that has at least a 5 impact and a 5 likelihood, a risk score of 25, or a 50, or a 15? That's a personal choice. Now, you're the one that's going to have to sleep at night with the decisions that you make. Keep that in mind. You're the one that's going to have to sleep at night with the decisions that you make. Okay? This is not a one-time decision, though. Maybe you start with everything over 30, and when that's done, you revisit the list and you go for everything over 25. However you do it, you have to establish some risk threshold so that you can apply appropriate resources today so that you can start moving forward. Remember that time and money are both resources, and most everyone that I know has an a finite amount of money, and everybody has a finite amount of time. There's only 24 hours a day, and you only have as many days as you have. So there's only so much to go around. Now, one of the good things is that big can cover small. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a step back and listen to a quote from Emily Dickinson, who said, "If you take care of the small things, the big things will take care of themselves." You gain more control over your life by paying closer attention to the little things. Okay? This works in planning and preparation as well. Take care of the big things to make sure that you have the little things taken care of. Okay? It's in reverse, but it works both ways. Just bear with me for a second. Take a wildfire, for instance. You can make sure to keep your vehicle fueled so that you can make a quick escape if necessary. You should have a fireproof blanket in your vehicle, and probably one close to your front door of your house as well. You should have a couple of days worth of canned food ready to go into your vehicle or already in your vehicle. You should have some cash on hand just in case. These are little things that add up to take care of the big things, but when you spread them out, you look at it, you've now taken care of a big thing, and it tells you how to take care of those little things. Now, the plans for this big event, the wildfire coming and destroying your home, can also be used for more minor events as well. So you take care of the big, it can cover the small, and you started to take care of the big by taking care of the small. Now, this is the approach that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention used when they posted their blog entry for the zombie apocalypse. Their basic premise was that if you prepare for big things, the little things will be covered as well. And I'll try to post a link to that blog page below. So take care of the small things because they take care of the big, but as you take care of the big, the more small things are also taken care of. Now, when you get to the end of the planning phase, you've really just begun the process. At this point, all you've done really is identify what you need to prepare for. Next, you need to break the plans down into bite-sized chunks, something that you can actually address. In project management, we call this decomposition. What you've been doing basically is making an umbrella, the project under which all the separate preparations, the phases, will take place. So we have a skill development phase, maybe a food storage phase, a water collection phase, etc. They're all under the project. Now, all these phases get divided up into smaller, more manageable pieces. The tasks become more specific and easier to discern from one another. This is called progressive decomposition. There's not going to be a test, so you don't necessarily have to remember the vocabulary. What I'll put together in another video goes through that process specifically, but let's just focus on planning for right now. It's easy once you understand it, and I've seen 3-day classes taught on the subject, and I really think that that's overkill. Once you understand the process, you'll see that you've been doing it all your life and you just never knew what to call it. At the bottom of the decomposition process is a deliverable, and the effort that put into that deliverable is a work package. Again, don't worry about it. It's not going to be a huge vocabulary test at the end, but I want you to see that it is broken down into little stages. Now, the work package is a discrete item of work that can be performed in a short period of time, usually no more than 8 hours, often much less. Let's take it out of the theoretical and put it into the practical. For instance, if you get ready for work as a project, get ready for work, then get clean would be one of the phases. Brush teeth, take showers, those would be deliverables, and items such as put toothpaste on toothbrush, apply toothbrush to teeth. Those would be your work packages, as would apply soap to washcloth and rinse body. So again, this is really easy stuff on the conceptual level, and you don't necessarily have to worry about what it's called. Just know that you're going to be breaking it down until you have something that you can actually do. Now finally, you have to understand that this is an iterative process. Okay, you don't just plan once and leave it alone. Think of how much different your plans would look today versus what your plans would have looked like on your first day of high school. Now, if you've gotten married or divorced or had kids or moved or changed jobs or virtually anything else in your life, then your plans are likely to be obsolete. You need to rethink them. Once you start planning, you'll also become aware of other things that need attention. So as you start implementing your plans, you'll become aware of even more things that need attention. And you just keep adding those in and you just keep going on. Now, when you practice your plan, you'll also find shortcomings. You go back and take care of those things. This is not a once-through process. Again, it's iterative. You start, you run through it, you go back and you do it again. Each time the plan gets better and more refined and the holes are filled in. And we'll get into that more detail in the future. But right now you have a good basic understanding. So we've begun. We'll get deeper into this process very soon. But I also have other videos that I want to bring you as well. So please come back to the channel if this is not necessarily is your cup of tea, let's say. There's more wild edibles around, and I'll be making videos on those, but probably we'll have to wait until it turns to spring here. So in Texas, that's probably another month or so. I also have some skills videos that I want to post for you. So please bear with me as we go through these process videos. Having a firm understanding of why you're doing what you're doing is as essential as knowing what you're doing and even how to do it. If you don't know why, then all of the what and how could be for nothing. Alright, so with that said, I'll let you get back to your day. And as always, thank you for stopping by. And please leave comments. And if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. Thank you very much.